Welcome back to the shop, everyone. This week's video takes place in 2024, week 46. That is November 11th through November 17th. And we are painting the diff this week. So that is the only thing that we are doing. And we are going to start by scuffing down all of this old epoxy primer. Get rid of some of the rust on some of the brackets. And yeah, that's the first thing we need to do in this process, is just scuff it all down so we can reshoot some new primer. So I tried to use the palm sander for as much as I could, but there's just so many contours and just hard to get at places on this that at the end of the day, I just need to grab a piece of sandpaper and just scuff this all down by hand. And the reason why I'm scuffing this down is that old paint's been on there for a long time. So for new paint to adhere, it's great to sand it fresh, get fresh scuff marks on there. And then the primer will, in theory, adhere to it a little bit better. Now that I've got the first round of sanding done, I'm going to use some dewax and degreaser, and I'm just going to go over and dewax and degrease the entire diff, and then after that, after it all dries, I'll kind of see the areas that I missed scuffing, because when you're scuffing and going over other areas, it's quite easy to miss some areas. So I just want to make sure that I'm scuffing this as best I can. So I've also got these little stabilizer struts that are supposed to go from the main housing onto some brackets that I forgot to have on when I did the exhaust last time, and this time I'm not forgetting to paint these, because if I forgot that, it would kind of suck. I mean, it wouldn't be the end of the world, because I am going to be painting other stuff on the car later on, but for completion's sake, I want to get all of the diff painted right now. So with that first round of degreasing done, we are going to switch over to sandpaper and scuff all of the areas that I missed the first time around. And then after this, I'll do a bit more degreasing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take off this bracket that holds my what is that splitter onto the diff, because I want to paint that too, and I want to get the diff entirely painted. So pull that off, and then we'll do a little bit more prep for paints. I'm going to bring my my old fab table over, and I'll hang those rods in that bracket from that so I can paint them. So after a bunch of prep work, getting the lines ready and the gun ready and that sort of stuff, it is time to start mixing up some paint. So this primer right along the bottom, I can feel it's kind of gotten a little bit hard, so I'm just taking my paint stick and really stirring the bottom very well. I think what I'm going to look at doing for the future is get a electric mixer of some sort. I think might help out a little bit. But yeah, so I believe, if I recall correctly, it's 4 parts primer to 1 part hardener, I think. I don't really remember. But anyways, this is pretty much going to be the rest of the video. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up the primer. I'm going to add the hardener to it. I'm going to spray 2 coats of primer, and then I'll sand the diff. Once it's sanded, I do have to let it dry. Like, I let the primer dry for 24 hours thereabouts, so there is quite a delay between me spraying the primer and sanding. But once I've sanded the primer, it's go time. So once the primer is sanded, well, I'll talk about that when we get there. So let's just mix up the primer, get the primer sprayed, and let it sit for 24 hours. Yeah, so for my first spray of primer, it went okay. It didn't lay out all that well. What I should have done is there's a screen in the top of the cap for the spray gun. I really should have pulled the filter out because, primer is really thick. It needs a big needle. But I didn't, so anyways, you live and you learn. It's the way it goes. So going forward, that's what I will do for primers. I'll pull that screen out, and it should spray a lot better than it did. But we're going to run a second coat, and the second coat goes on just fine. I didn't have any problems with it. So after we spray, we got to clean the gun, and this takes a while, and I'm doing a bunch of different layers and colors and stuff here, so I get pretty familiar with cleaning the gun. I initially tried to clean it with mineral spirits. That did not work for shit. I eventually ended up using just the normal paint reducer, and that had it cleaning up very well. Yeah, so we're going to clean up and then let the primer dry for a while. So now the gun's clean. I've let it sit for 3 or 4 hours, but it is kind of cold in my shop right now. So I'm just going to do a quick little test sand. I'm just going to staple some sandpaper to this block. And as it turns out, the primer wasn't really dry. It was just kind of smushing primer around. So I'm going to let it go for a while longer. So now, as I said, this is like 24 hours after I initially painted. So now the primer is actually starting to sand. So I'm going to sand down the whole diff. And again, it's the type of thing where there's a lot of contours on here. So I'm going to use the block where I can on some of the big surfaces. But then at the end of the day, I just need to sand a ton of this by hand. And this is a very arduous process. Like, it's not exactly fun. It's messy. But at the end of the day, I'm getting it painted, so I'm not really going to complain about it. Because it's so cold in the shop, I got a little propane heater, so I'm just gonna light it up here real quick and start getting some more heat into the shop. And then once that's lighted, we will get back to sanding. So with everything sanded, I'm going to do a round of dewaxing and degreasing just to get all of the old sand dust off of the diff as much as I can. I probably should have blown it off with the air gun first, but I just go right to dewaxing and degreasing. Okay, so now we can start masking and taping this diff off. So the theme is going to be, the main housing is going to be black with red metal flake, and then all of the extra brackets, so like the upper control arms, lower control arms, shock brackets, the support rods are all going to go red with a black metal flake. So I figured I was going to start with the red paint with black metal flake. So what I'm doing is I'm taping off the main housing. So everything that's going to be black is going to get taped first. And the reason why I did this is I figured if any paint bled through, well, the black will just cover it up, no problem. No fuss, no muss. So yeah, so we're just going to spend a while taping this off. Yeah, taping really sucks, but you know, it's part of the process. You got to do it. Alrighty, so now that we have the main body all taped and masked off, what we are going to do is we are going to mix up and spray our red base. So I've only got a little quart of this red base because I'm only doing like a little tiny bit of the car red. The majority of it's going to be with a black base, but we've got enough, more than enough, to do this little section that we're doing right now. So let's get to it. All right, so we are ready to go. So we are going to lay down 2 base coats of red onto this. So start out by doing the first base coat, and then I let it flash for I forget how long the instructions say. I think the instructions are 10 to 15, but because it's a little bit colder in the shop and I'm using reducer that wants a little bit of a higher heat, I let it flash for a little bit longer just to make sure that all the solvents are kind of out of the paint and gone. So after we do this first coat, as I say, we'll let it flash for, I want to say I want for like 15 minutes. I don't really remember. But as soon as that happens, then we will put on our second coat. Alrighty, so our second coat is on, and at this point in time, I'm looking at this, I'm like, this is really good, and then I realize I missed just the top of those brackets, but I'm sitting there thinking to myself, this is really good. I don't think I really need to do a third coat. If I could see any of the primer or I didn't have full coverage, I would do a third coat. But at this point in time, I am really happy with the results. So as that is flashing, I am going to clean out the gun. So I'm using some of the paint reducer, take the gun all apart, clean it all, and then what I will do is I will mix up my Intercoat clear with some black metal flake. So my idea is I'm going to run red base with a black metal flake over top. We're going to see how that turns out. So as I haven't worked with like a lot of these paints before, when I go to each one, I go back to the directions and I read the directions, figure out what the mixture is supposed to be, what the reducer is supposed to be, all that fun stuff. So throughout this, you'll see me reading the directions a lot. All right, so I got the inner clear mixed up, and originally I add some black metal flakes. I think that's I forget what that measuring spoon is, but I was going to add that, but I ended up putting a little tiny bit in the Intercoat, and it looked like it was a lot. So I was like, I probably don't need this much, so I just added a little bit more, and I dumped the rest back in because I was like, holy shit, this is actually a lot of metal flake in a little container. But it's getting mixed up. I got a lot of metal flake on the stick, so it seems like a good consistency to me. So we're going to get this in the gun and shoot it. So I'm done painting the first coat here, and I'm looking at this and I can't really see the metal flake. So as it turns out, I really didn't add enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up the container, and I'm just going to put some more metal flake in. I go to a smaller measuring spoon, fill it all up, put it in, and after I let this coat flash, because again, like as I said before when I was doing the red, you got to let the paint flash between coats. So what that's doing is all the solvents that are in the paint, you got to let them get out of the paint, because if I were to just spray right over top of this, I would probably get bubbles, or it would just react and not look good. So patience is the key, and letting it flash a little bit more is better than not enough. So anyways, by this point in time, we let it flash. So I'm going to throw on a second coat of the Intercoat clear with the black metal flake. So now that that's done, I look at it and I don't know, I'm on the fence about it. I'm not too happy with it. But that's why I'm practicing and testing on the diff. It's going to be under the car. No one will really see it. If I don't like it, I don't have to do it anywhere else. So now that that is done, we are going to, yet again, clean the spray gun. This is going to be a recurring theme. It's spray, wait, clean the gun, spray, wait. Like, it's just all we do. So yeah, you gotta clean up the gun again here. And the great thing is, while I'm cleaning the gun, the paint's flashing, and in the instructions there, they have like the amount of time needed to flash between coats, and then they have amount of time needed to flash before masking. So because I'm painting the main body of the diff black, I'm going to need to tape off and mask all of the red parts so that I can paint just the rest of it without going over the red. So, you know, it all kind of works out. The amounts of time that it takes me to clean the gun is roughly the amount of time needed before I can mask it off. So there's lots to do, and there's a short amount of time to do it, but it all kind of flows well. I didn't feel rushed. Like, it was just I really enjoyed this process. I really liked shooting the diff. Apparently I really like painting. So yeah, we're going to clean the gun, and then we are going to work on taking off all the masking of the body, and we will start working on masking off the red stuff. So yeah, I'm just going to take off all this original masking. This is already starting to look phenomenal. I'm really, really starting to like how this is already looking. I mean, the red even just contrasted with the gray of the primer. I really like that red. Alright, so at this point in time, I've let the red flash off more than enough, so we are going to tape off all of the red stuff, and we are going to work on getting all of the body painted black. it really is a shame to hide all that red, but we are going to do another round of degreasing and dewaxing because I've been touching this diff all over, and the oils from my hands will potentially leach into the primer, and the oil will potentially have a negative reaction with the solvents and the paint. So just, this dewaxing and degreasing makes sure that I have the best possible chance of a good outcome. This is my first time painting, so there's no guarantee I'm going to have a good outcome, but, I'm going to do everything in my power to try and have a good outcome. Alright, it is time to mix up some black paint. So I don't really want to make a huge mess, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this measuring cup to pull the black out of the main can, and measure it all off, mix it all up. So this right here is my first attempt, so I get all the paint set up and everything's looking good. I've gone through this process 3-4 times now, and so I start spraying the black and it's not looking right. It's looking super thin. I'm not getting a lot of coverage out of it. It almost looks like it's reacting to the primer, and so I just kind of do the definition of insanity is just continually doing the same thing, expecting a different result. I don't know why I keep spraying and expecting a different result. I'm just kind of looking at it and just trying to figure it out. But it's not spraying well, and that's not good. So I'm just going to stop here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just clean the gun. I'm going to take it all apart and kind of reassess and see if I can figure out what's going on. So yeah, this is kind of just a shitty situation, but I'm just going to reset and start from scratch. Now then, when I grabbed my other larger cup for the clear coat, I figured out exactly what I did. I mismeasured. So on the cup, there's 4:1:1. So that's supposed to be, 2:1:1 for the base. So it's supposed to be 2 parts base, 1 part reducer. And I think what I did is I put 1 part base, 2 parts reducer, so I had way too much of the reducer in there, and I don't know how I fucked it up, but I did. So we're just going to clean the gun, and I stir the black more because I'm like, maybe the pigment wasn't stirred very well, so I stir it up more, but I know I just messed up my mixture. So yeah, gonna clean the gun, just start fresh, remix some paint, and then we'll try again. take two, you know, just getting everything all set up, spraying the plastic spraying out good, and then start spraying the diff. And yeah, this is laying down so much nicer. So okay, so we're just gonna fly through this, and we're gonna lay again 2 coats of black, and like we did with the red, we'll spray it, we'll let it flash for, you know, 15-20 minutes between coats, and then we will continue on from there. Alright, so with the black sprayed, we can now, I think that was my second coat. Was that my second coat? No, that was not my second coat. That was just the first coats. I'm just checking to make sure I do have enough paint, which I do, but now it's time for the second coat. Alrighty, so now with the second coat done, we're going to do what we've done before. Take the paint out of the container, break the gun down, clean the gun, and get ready for our next coat of paint. I lied. It looks like I need more paint to finish off coating everything. So I'm just very quickly mixing up a little bit more paint, and then I'll finish spraying. Okay, now it's time to clean up break down the spray gun, clean the gun, because we're finished with the black. Alright, so we know the process already. I am mixing up some Intercoat clear, and I'm doing red metal flake on the black. So throw some reducer in there, I'll throw in the Intercoat with the clear, and then I will take that small teaspoon, put red metal flake, fill up the small teaspoon, dump that in there, mix that, and we will spray some red metal flake over this black base, and we'll see how it turns out. Now that the red metal flake is sprayed, it looks fine. You know, it looks good enough. I'm not super jazzed about it at this point. I mean, it's just not doing exactly what I was hoping it was going to do, but I mean, it looks good enough, so let's clean this gun. So I'm reading the instructions for the clear, and then all of a sudden I realized that I never cleaned out the adapter for the gun. So the top part where the cup screws on, that's still got a bunch of Intercoat clear with red metal flake. So I'm going to break down the entire gun, clean the whole thing again. And that's fine, because while I'm doing this, the Intercoat and the black, that's all flashing off and making it so that I can continue working on the diff. With the gun cleaned a second time, I'm going to unmask all of the red pieces. This is just a little time consuming. There's a few small areas where some of the red peels off, and I'm sure that's just due to poor preparation, but whatever, we're just going to keep on keeping on. I'm not too stressed about it. This is under the car. It's probably going to get hit by rocks and stuff like that. I'm not going to fuss about it. So now that I've got, all of the tape off, I've noticed that there are a few areas where I had obviously taped over for both the red and the black. So there's a few places like in the brackets. So I'm just going to try and touch it up. The brush was way too big. So I just end up taking a little stir stick and just the very tip and just kind of dab in the places and just kind of very gingerly put on some paint, and that worked very well. I was able to get all of the little areas touched up, and it looks really good so far. I'm really happy so far with how it's come out. So now what I'm going to do before I spray the clears, I'm just going to blow it all off. I am not going to wax and dewax or degrease this because that would absolutely mess up all of the paint that I've just done. So I'm using a bigger cup now for the clear because I know I was going to need more than I was mixing up before, but I end up mixing up way too much clear. I did not need to mix up anywhere near as much clear as I did. So on the cup I'm just realizing how I fucked up when I painted the black, because I wasn't reading the cup right. Now I fully understand how it all works. Yeah, so on the cup there's certain numbers and as to how much you can mix, and so I mix it up to an 8, and then when I'm done spraying it's only down to a 7. So I really mixed up way more than I needed, but you live and you learn. Is it an expensive mistake? Yes, not the most expensive. I mean, if I was having someone else paint this, then, you know, it would have cost me way more. So coming out ahead, but yeah, just learned that I made up way too much, and, you know, that'll help me in the future if I need to paint anything. Alright, so now we are going to go ahead and we are going to spray 2 medium wet coats of clear. And yeah, that's all there is. We're just going to spray a couple coats of clear. You know, as I said before, we let it flash between coats, so we're just going to do the same thing. Alright, well, there we have it. 2 coats of clear, and you can't really see it in this angle, and I really wish I had moved the cam and really shown, but man, that red metal flake on the black base is phenomenal. I am so freaking happy with how that came out. The black metal flake on the red, it just kind of looks like overspray, but you know, once I can get it into the sun and look at it, it might be a different story. But yeah, that black with the red metal flake, I'm so freaking happy with how that turned out. In next week's video, I will make sure I get you some nice, good views of how it looks. You can also go on my Instagram. I got some pictures, but man, even the pictures, the video, none of it really can show how good I think this really looks. So with that, we're just going to clean up the gun here. for the final time for now, thankfully, because cleaning this up is a bit of a pain in the ass. But let's just go ahead and get that done. Now that the gun's clean, we can go ahead and we can start cleaning up the bench. There's a ton of paint on the bench, so I'm just going to use some reducer and then use sanding block and just kind of get it all cleaned up. Get the bench nice and cleaned up, and then I will put all of the paint away back in its boxes. Alright, well, with getting all of this paint put away in its boxes, that is all the time that we have for this video. So as always, I would like to thank you for viewing, and we'll see you in the next one.